Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening if you are watching. This is Miro African Diaspora TV, MAD. Welcome to Diaspora Today. This is essentially a program where we discuss social and political issues as well as cultural issues affecting the life of Biafrans home and abroad. The presidency denies the ongoing persecution of Christians in Nigeria by Islamic terrorists such as Boko Haram and Fulani Herdsmen. This was made known by Senior Special Assistant, Media and Publicity to Muhammad Buhari, Garba Shehu, who claimed that the accusation is a falsehood allegation, a campaign spearheaded by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, to tarnish the image of the Nigerian state internationally. What Garba Shehu, however, does not know is that at least 3 ethnic groups affected by the cleansing have already been invited to the United States to present their cases.
A year and a half ago, on February 19th, 2018, 110 girls were kidnapped from Dapchi. Before that, you heard the stories of girls that were kidnapped in Chibok. Remember the Bring Back Our Girls and all that signage that went forward. These girls last year were released. 109 of them were released. 5 of them perished on the way, but 1 girl was kept. Her name was Leah Sharibu, who was happened to be a Christian, and Rebecca will share that story. In Nigeria, she is considered a martyr. If you go to Nigeria, songs are written about her, videos are produced, books are written. To many Christians and Muslims, she is a hero because she stood with her faith. So please welcome Rebecca.
I'm here stand here for pleading the government of US. Please help me. Okay. Please help me. I'm bring my daughter back. I need my daughter.
Hello, everybody. Just being here is answered prayers, because after we were left hopeless, the only thing we could do at that point really was pray. And God raised an army in Didi, Kyle, Stephen. It's a miracle that we're here. So first of all, we want to thank you for this opportunity. My name is Alheri. I'm Adara from Ufana in Kajuru, local government of Kaduna State. As I stand here right now, I've been warned not to say a word because I might be killed. You know, you can't speak about it. If you speak about it, you're threatened, thrown in prison, harassed by the police. Well, I asked the person that called me, I said, what have I got to lose if I don't talk? My family is killed every day. My dad was locked up for over 100 days. My tribe is now extinct. So if I keep quiet, to what gain will that be? The people who die every day are human beings too. And if I have an opportunity to let the world know what's happening in my hometown, I will do anything to be able to save, even if it's one life. We have 2-month-old babies, 6-month-old babies in the belly torn from their mother's wombs and slaughtered like animals, like chickens. So we're here today to beg the US government, to beg everybody here for the world to hear our story. October of last year, our chief was kidnapped on the 19th of October, and then he was murdered on the 26th. He was kidnapped with his wife, but the wife wasn't feeling too well. And the Fulani herdsmen, when they kidnap you, they take you into the bush and you walk on foot. So if amongst you there's someone who is sick, they usually let the person go. So that's the only reason why the wife was let go. She wasn't feeling too fine. The Adara people paid a ransom, but he was still murdered. And immediately he was murdered, my dad is the waziri, so he holds the chiefdom when the chief is unavailable. So it was when the chief died that the elders in Adara land realized that the governor on the 29th of May 2018 had signed that I and 95% other Adara Christians are now under a Muslim House of Fulani Emirate. And it was so ridiculous that it was already signed into law and nobody knew about it. For a governor to make that kind of law in the first place without the people of the land knowing about it is illegal and unjust. So the elders kept trying to get the attention of the government, but nobody would listen. So when they realized nobody was going to listen to them, they took the matter to court. And a week after the civil case started in court, my dad and 8 other elders were arrested and thrown into prison for no reason. The reason the government gave was that they were the reasons why 66 Fulani were killed. The governor made that announcement on the 15th of February 2019. And 2 days later, the elders were arrested. We all know why they were arrested. It wasn't because Fulani people were killed. And those Fulani people he said were killed, till date, there's no evidence to that. The police commissioner of Kaduna State has a statement. It's on on the internet, saying that the investigation into that particular crisis hasn't been concluded and he can't confirm or deny the number of people killed. The problem we have with the statement the governor made is that he said 66 Fulani were killed. On the 10th of February, 11 Adara people were killed. The government didn't say anything about it, even when the leaders of the community officially made a statement. There is nowhere, check on the internet, check everywhere, you will never see a statement from the state government saying Adara community was attacked or an Adara person was killed. But if one Fulani person, any Fulani Muslim is killed, it makes headlines. The governor himself comes out to make news. And we're wondering, as Adara people, aren't we citizens of Kaduna State? That things like this will happen and nobody cares. And every time someone tries to speak about it, you're thrown in prison. So after the governor made that announcement, a lot of NGOs and civil societies went to Kajuru to try to give credibility to the story. And then the human rights chairman, the former human rights chairman of Nigeria as a whole, came out and said the story was false. 3 weeks ago, that man was called to the police station on the orders of the governor. So imagine a human rights national chairman of Nigeria being called because he spoke about it. Not to talk of we who live in the community. We are not allowed to say these things at all. There are almost 13,000 IDPs from Adara alone. There are about 400 people, mostly women and children, who have been killed. I spoke to a woman whose limbs were cut off. She had 4 kids and was 9 months pregnant. The Fulani herdsmen came to Kajuru town in February, about 400 of them with AK-47s. They came at about 6:30 a.m. in the morning. And they spoke Adara. That's my language. They're Fulani herdsmen, but they spoke Adara. And they come in with war songs. They'll be singing songs. If I translate, it says, the owners of the land have come. It's time for settlers to leave. And they're in their hundreds. Where do you start from? Because we are hunters. Even if we have guns, they're Dane guns. So you find people running. They like when they come in and you start running and then they start shooting, like you know how you like sheep running away, and then they find pleasure in doing that. Another thing they do is to cut limbs and cut open pregnant women and remove the babies and cut them, and they try their best for the woman not to die. For some reason, most of the women whose kids were killed or whose babies were removed from their tummies didn't die. So it's kind of like to come out and tell the story of the terror if we don't leave the land. And there is no Fulani IDP camp. There are no cases of anywhere where Adara people attacked Fulani people. But the narrative from the government, they will tell you that they're reprisal attacks. But we keep asking, reprisal attacks from what? Adara must have attacked anybody for the Fulani to say they're retaliating. But there's no case like that. But every time the government gives a narrative, they will tell you it is between farmers and herdsmen. We are a sleeping community, sleeping at 6:30 in the morning. We are not organized. We don't have AK-47s. How is that a fight between farmers and Fulani herdsmen? And that's the narrative that everybody will tell you. You go to the government, talk to anybody, try to wade in to ask for help. They tell you it's not religious, but it is religious. It is religious. Right now, my tribe is non-existent legally. So part of the reason why I'm here is to try to get my land back. That's who I am. That's my identity. That's who makes me Alheri. My people are stranded. They're literally sleeping under the skies, on the floor. No houses, no food, nothing. So it's not about relief materials. It's not about how much we can donate. It's not about that. It's about holding the government accountable. The United States government is very influential in the Nigerian government. I know there's a lot of money the Nigerian government collects from the United States government, We're here to beg you to hold them accountable. Ask them what that money is being used for. A few years ago, our governor, the Kaduna State governor, said he found this Fulani militia and paid them money to stop kidnapping. That's ridiculous. So if he knows who they are, why are they not in prison? Why are the Adara people the ones still in prison? My dad and the other elders spent 103 days in prison. These are the elders of a community. Our youth, every time there's an attack, they come the next day, pack any youth they see on the streets, Adara youth. There is no Fulani man arrested for killing Adara people. There is no statistic from the government of any Adara person being killed, or the Adara people homeless, or the Adara people who need help. It's like we don't exist anymore. Stephen Jefferson is a journalist who tried to speak out for the Adara people. Right now he's in prison for inciting violence through his post, saying the truth. We are not allowed to tell people that, look, I'm sleeping at home, you came to kill me, I'm crying out. We're not allowed to do that. So please, we're begging, we are here to ask that at least let our story be heard. Let it be known what is happening to the Adara people. The case is in court, but honestly, the judicial system is under the government. We, as the children of the Adara elders, tried to bring out official statements and gave news people and the media. Nobody will take our story. We paid money, nobody will take our story. The media is not allowed to say anything about the Adara people. So we're here to beg people, beg the US government to please wade into our matter. We want justice for our land. We need our land back. We're 95% Christian Adara. Adara is the largest Christian community in Kaduna State. So we know it won't end at Adara alone. There seems to be a systematic plan to take over Kaduna State and Nigeria as a whole. It's purely religious, purely. I'm living it. It's not something I read in the newspapers. It's what we're living. If a post, there's this federal character in Nigeria where if appointments are given out, it's supposed to be shared equally to people. And right now in Kaduna State, on April 11th, the governor set up an agency to abolish indigenship in Kaduna State. So what does that mean for me? If you're taking away my chiefdom and there's no Adara anymore, and you're saying I'm no longer even an indigene of Kaduna State, that says a lot. So a Fulani man can come and register as a citizen of Kaduna State and get all the benefits of a citizen, while I am a true indigene of the state, and then I get no allocations and I'm not recognized at all. And then on Friday, another bill was passed that government officials were now to regulate the preachers in Kaduna State. It's so unbelievable sometimes. If I wasn't living it, I won't believe it. So a government official is supposed to tell a preacher how to preach and what to say. And the license is to be renewed every year. That tells you that if you don't do what the government says, in a year, you lose your license. So eventually, even in churches, it is only what the government allows you to say that you're allowed to say to the congregation. So at the end of the day, we're just going to be extinct, really, and the government takes over and does whatever they want to do. It's a plan that if it's not curtailed right now, it's going to be terrible for the world at large because there's a genocide going on. In conclusion, I want to reiterate again that we need help from the US government. Hold the Nigerian government accountable. Ask them what they're doing with the money. Where are they getting money to pay these herdsmen? If you're going to pay herdsmen to stop killing, why don't you just arrest them and put them in prison? It's been a helpless, hopeless situation, and God, through all of you, has given us hope. I don't know how I'm not crying right now. I was crying when I was sitting there because I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm in a place where someone will hear my story at all. It's been as if we've been in a dark hole with no light. But in all of this, God is God. The woman I mentioned that who lost her kids was sleeping at home when the Fulani men came. She said there were about 400 of them and they all wore black. So in the morning when they went out, there was just this dark cloud as if it was going to rain. And then they looked up and saw they were surrounded by the Fulani herdsmen with AK-47s. So they ran into her room And she had 4 kids and was pregnant, 9 months pregnant. And they told the kids in Adara to lie down on the floor. And the kids lay down. There were 4 of them. And then one in the middle sat up crying when he saw his 2 other siblings their heads being cut off. And she was there just looking at them crying. She said she didn't know what to do. But when they got to the 4th child to slaughter, the Fulani men couldn't find the child. And she said God was telling her in the midst of that chaos that he's alive and he's there. They searched everywhere, but they couldn't find the 4th child. And he was sitting right there in front of her. And she was trying to reach out and hold her kid, but she couldn't even. And then when they went out and she ran to her kid to hug him, they came back inside and then they cut off her left hand and tried to sever her head, and then hit her tummy. She started bleeding and passed out. So it was a reverend father that came and rescued her. And by the time she woke up, her 9-month-old baby had died. They had operated on her and removed the child. And her only surviving child is the child that God protected from the Fulani herdsmen. So I want to tell you that we believe in God. We know that God is the reason why we're even here to tell our stories. What we've been through, it's impossible to even stand and talk because it's surreal when you're living in situations like that. So I want to thank everyone here for your time, for listening to us, and continue to beg that something is being done about this. Thank you.
In addition, what Gabashu is not aware of is that the information about the genocide against Christians taking place currently in Nigeria has not only been reported by IPOB, but also by international journalists such as this.
I'm just outside of Abuja in the capital of Nigeria, and this is a refugee camp with about 1,500 people in it that have been internally displaced from their villages further north and to the west. There are about 2.5 million internally displaced people within Nigeria, and that makes this one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world right now. And the thing that all of these people have in common is that they're Christians. 29-year-old Aisha grew up in northern Nigeria with her family, scratching out a meager living along with the rest of those in her small village. She's a Christian from one of the largest ethnic groups in West Africa. Life was hard for this young mother of 2 boys and was about to get a whole lot harder.
In November 2013, Boko Haram invaded our village. They killed my father-in-law and abducted some of the children who lived with us. We were so scared, so we fled into the mountains.
As a movement, Boko Haram has been around for a very long time, starting back in 2002, long before ISIS even became a thing. And as time went on, they got more and more extreme to the point where in 2011, they detonated a car bomb at this building behind me. That's the UN embassy here in Abuja. They've continued to kill people across the country of Nigeria, thousands in fact, to the point where in 2015, they were dubbed the most dangerous terror group on the planet. Much of that terror directed at Christians. Enoch Yohana was one of Aisha's neighbors.
They started with burning of the churches, killing the pastors, and killing the members, closing them down. On 29 September 2014 was the day that they attacked my village. Around 10, I have a call that they have killed my dad. They asked him to deny Christ, in which he refused. They have cut his right hands. Then he refused. They have cut to the elbow again, in which he refused before they shot him thrice at the head, forehead, the neck, and chest.
Of course, Muslims are also killed by the terrorists, but the fact remains that Christians seems to be the main target of the terrorists, since the absurd acts are committed by Boko Haram and Fulani herdsmen who want to implement Buhari's Islamization agenda.
Let's go there. Gama Zampara, Damburo Banna. Gama Zampara. Wallahi.
It's worth noting that since Buhari came into office, the number of the Muslim terrorists has increased immensely. One has to say that it is ridiculous to deny this genocide or even to say that it is IPOB propaganda, because you can find sufficient evidence, sufficient videos on internet that shows that the Fulani people are killing Christians driving them from their ancestral lands, destroying their church, and finally getting away with it.
I say on my knees with this broken body, with this ashes, that the Fulani terrorists have burned down many houses, many souls have died. And if it is because of sin of humanity, I say God forgive us.
Videos like this testifies to that. Recently, Fulani herdsmen killed a pastor and his wife in Taraba State, northeastern Nigeria on June 1st. According to a report, Pastor Emmanuel Saba Bilaya and his wife Juliana were murdered by gunmen in their farm. The sad thing though is that even European journalists have so far downplayed this genocide by portraying it merely as a dispute between Fulani herdsmen and the locals. The effect of this type of report is that it makes genocide happen while the world just look away. That's basically it for today, and thanks for watching Mirror African Diaspora TV. Man, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to be notified anytime we post a new video.